Smith. Steve, could you go ahead and let us know what the word of the day will be today?
Yes, I will. I routinely engage in time travel. No, I'm not being funny. Every time I point my telescope at the sky, I am looking back in time. I regularly look at a galaxy that is 10 million light years away, which means literally that light left the star 10 million years ago. If that's not going back in time, what is? And all of that led me to the word of the day. A word that means quite literally looking back. The word of the day is retrospect. Retrospect. Use it in table topics, use it throughout the meeting, and I'll report later.
All right. Thank you very much, Steve. Hopefully we will all use retrospect today. For our next role holder, our master today, Carol Ann Halstead. Carol Ann, can you share with us what you will be doing today in our meeting?
I will be listening to everyone speaking and will count the ahs, the ands, the pregnant pauses. And I know ah is one of my big problems with speaking yet. So I am the mistress myself.
Thank you very much, Carol. Next up is our grammarian. Our grammarian today is Phil Russell. Phil, do you want to share with us what you will be doing? And Phil, you are muted. So if you want to try that again, we would love to hear what you're going to be doing today.
Yes, sorry about that. Today, I will be the grammarian, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests. Going into the past, the reason I'm on Zoom and not there is I had two important things going on yesterday. One, playing golf with Dave Licata in 88-degree weather, and that was the past. And as Mario says, that's always an interesting story. And it was. And then we had a board meeting, and it was very boring. That went a little bit too long. So I decided that I was going to sleep in and not be there in person. And as far as the future, my favorite was Jules Verne. Where I would like to go, being a Big Bang Theory person, I'd like to go back all the way to the Big Bang to see if it really happened. And I will be watching for gross grammatical errors. So watch your grammar. Oh, grammar. Madam Toastmaster.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Well, in retrospect, I hope that golfing didn't get too hot for you.
Oh, looking back in retrospect, it was very warm, but we made it. It took us an extra half an hour, but we were walking slow. We let others go through. We were very courteous. We had a great time, and golfing with David is fun, except he does a lot of complaining, unfortunately.
All right, well, that sounds like a problem for another day.
That is.
Next up is our quote master. Our quote master today is Larry McKenzie. Larry, can you share with us your quote for the day? Do we have Larry in the room?
No.
All right, well, perhaps Larry will join us later. If not, if someone else has a quote they can share with us, we can come back to that. And we'll move on to Gerald Stevens with our jest for today.
Morning, fellow Toastmasters. Time travel, very interesting subject that I don't think we've had before. Love new stuff, new themes. I used to be addicted to time travel, but that's all in the past now. My wife wanted to be a time traveler. She keeps going back to the past. I asked my brother if there was any food left, and he said, only if you can time travel. So I went back for seconds. Not very good, fellow Toastmasters, but that's what I had for today. And if I had to travel somewhere back in time, I would not travel back in time. I would stay in the present because I love my life. Not a
All right.
Toastmaster.
Thank you, Gerald. Good to hear. Staying in the present. I think that's where you find happiness, as they say. Next up, we have our timer. Beth Banks will be our timer today. And Beth, can you share with us what you will be doing?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In retrospect, I do believe that retiring was a very good thing for me. I will tell you that one of the things I did with my 6th grade students was I introduced them to a movie called Timeline, which I don't know if you can see this. I loved it because it included archaeology and it was adventure and it was also the Middle Ages, which we studied. So it really fit for me, if anyone would like to try that movie. My job this morning as timer is to time table topics, speeches, and evaluations. The time for table topics, you will get the green light at 1 minute and 30 seconds, the yellow at 1 minute and 45 seconds, and the red at 2 minutes, which means wrap it up. For speeches, unless I'm told otherwise, you will get the green light at 5 minutes, the yellow at 6, and the red at 7 minutes. For evaluations, you'll get the green light at 2 minutes, the yellow at 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and the red at 3 minutes. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Back to you.
Thank you. We do have an opening today for our tech and gesture master. Is there anyone who would like to volunteer today to be tech and gesture master?
I can do that. This is Kate.
All right, Kate, can you share with us what you will be doing?
Absolutely. I will pay attention to our tech and our body language using both. And we started just about on time. So that was a great start. And in retrospect, I wasn't paying attention quite to all the details of tech and gesture. So you were off scot-free if you had any glitches up till this point. I will now start paying attention. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Kate. Our quiz master today is Margot. Margot, can you share with us your role?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, my role is the perfect one to be retrospective because I am going to look back on the meeting and at the end I will ask between 3 and 5 questions. I'm going to keep it very short, so you better pay attention because there's not going to be a lot of information there. So enjoy your day, folks, and be listening.
Thank you, Margot. Well, fellow Toastmasters, what else can I tell you about time travel? Perhaps you'd like to know if it's actually possible. It's an interesting question. It hasn't really been scientifically proven to not be possible. Of course, as far as we know, no one has time traveled. But there are a lot of myths out there, and there are a lot of experiments or theories, or perhaps potential experiments we don't know about. So what does science say about it? According to special and general relativity theories, there is a possibility that we could be able to do it, but you would have to probably travel faster than the speed of light to accomplish time travel. And then there's all kinds of theories about how you would do it through transversible wormholes or some other method. I'm not exactly sure what a transversible wormhole is, and probably neither are you, but that's okay. A lot of people think that going back in time might not be possible but going forward in time could be, but it would be a one-way ticket. Now, Stephen Hawking doesn't really think that time travel is possible, but other astrophysicists like Jamie Matthews say, yes, it is. So it's still an unknown whether or not time travel will ever happen, but I don't think it's very likely to happen to any of us. Now we're going to move into our table topics portion of the meeting today. Our table topics master is Jackie Kenny. And Jackie, we are going to have 2 speeches today, so we have a little extra time for table topics. So feel free to call on a couple of extra folks today.
Well, how fun, Jen. Okay, I can do that. So here we are thinking about time travel. And I'm pretty sure that most of us have times in our life that we wish we could do over for one reason or another, good or bad. So I think I'd like to ask Jill this morning, if there's a time in your life you could travel back to and do over, what would that be? Jill Roaring.
Thank you, Jackie. In retrospect, there are probably many times I wish I could travel back and change my life. But if I changed it too much, I probably wouldn't be here with Steve. So that is, in relation, a good and bad thing. Well, it would be bad if I had traveled back and changed things. I got the desired reaction from him there. He is listening. I probably would not have married my husband. I would have paid attention to the time that my dad almost punched him in the laundry room because he was doing something I don't even remember what. I just remember my dad's reaction. That was before we got married. I should have paid attention then. I would not have let him take money from my business the way he did. And I would have gotten out of the marriage a lot sooner than 13 years. And then there was more tragedies and triumphs since then. But ultimately, like I said, if I changed my life, I don't think I would be with Steve right now. And that's good. So thank you, Madam Table.
So we need a few extra people in the room and online to get up and speak today. So I think we probably like to hear from Jason, one of our newer members. And Jason can talk to us about something in his life that he'd like to do over, using the word retrospect and talking for a minute and a half, Jason. Not too little, not too much. Jason.
Okay, sure. Thank you. In retrospect, and I did a lot of stupid things, and if I can time travel to back to like 5 years ago, maybe I won't waste a lot of time to play video games or did a lot of stupid things, and maybe if I can time travel to the back and maybe if you have some money, maybe you can buy some stocks, because the stocks, which the stock is going to, with the price going to and be the best. And maybe you can buy a lottery, right? And because you already know something about a lottery number. And yeah, actually, maybe we do a lot of thing that we are regret, but time travel time travel to the past is theoretically possible in certain general relativity space-time, but it's hard to make it real. So the best thing is we need focus on right now. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Jason. And we have a parade of mics in our club now. So I think I'd like to call on our newest mic to come up to the lectern. You can talk to us about regrets. You can talk to us about time travel, things you'd like to do over. But come on up here, Mike, and let's hear from you.
So as I've been sitting here thinking about time travel, and everybody brings up the moment that you would go back to and change, I thought, in retrospect, I would like to go back to one of those fantastic moments in my life, that things that you would really enjoy to live over again, instead of going back to change your life, potentially spinning everything out of control, changing your entire future. Go back to things like the birth of a child or your wedding day, or just things that you would like to experience and live over again. Just to take advantage of that and really take it all in. Maybe even look at it from the outside in as an observer instead of a participant. That way you could get a better experience in something that you had in the past. Okay. For me, as opposed to, or I should say, experiences I would like to live again, as I said, birth of my children, my wedding day, something that my wife had done for me shortly after, or shortly before the birth of our first child, was she actually purchased, as part of one of my lifelong dreams, a 1-hour discovery flight lesson. Something I'd always wanted to do was to fly an airplane. So she paid, she said, no, you're never going to do it. You're not going to do it. And then Christmas showed up and here's a certificate for a 1-hour discovery flight. So took off out of Niagara Falls, went up and I have some beautiful pictures top down over Niagara Falls. And that was an amazing experience that I would certainly love to live again.
Very good.
Thank you, Mike. And that's what you do when table topics comes up. You sit and think about what you might be able to say. So I think we should hear from one more person in the room. And that would be, how about Dave Licata? I know Dave has something to say in retrospect about time travel.
Madam Table Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Jackie just made a reference to table topics and how you start to mull the thought over. And it dawned on me that I don't want to go back, especially at my age, because every day these wonderful scientists and people in the medical field come up with a way for us to live longer, happier lives. I don't want to go back to first grade at St. John's because I didn't have the polio shot yet, and I don't want to go back there. But believe it or not, Jackie, there is one moment that I would go back in time, and it was really just 5 minutes ago when Phil Russell identified Jules Verne as the author of The Time Machine. George Orwell. Phil, what's wrong with you, Phil? And then you had to talk about me on the golf course. I'm much better than I was, I promise you. But there were some outstanding moments growing up. I really got into high school theater. I enjoyed that to death. My father had a friend that was one of the pioneers, early pioneers of let's get out of here and move to California. He did very well in real estate and he came home to Lockport to visit. I told him what I was up to and he said, well, I play golf with Danny Kaye's agent. I went, oh, there's a ticket, right? No. I knew I had to go to Licata Brothers cigar store, Licata Brothers warehouse, Licata vending, and then Licata office coffee and vending, because I just wanted to be that loyal son. But that's the way the ball bounces. You can't dwell on it too much. I have had a great life, and I was fortunate enough in the last 12 days to go to the Biltmore Estate in North Carolina. So the future's looking bright.
Okay, I think maybe we need to hear from at least one more person because we're using up a little extra time today. So I'm going to ask Nancy Rose if she'd like to speak about something she can contemplate in retrospect and let us know what she thinks about time travel. Nancy.
Hello, thank you. When I think in retrospect of my life, I'm pretty lucky. So first, I'd like to go back to all those moments, knowing that I was born into a family of 11 children, and now I have about 100 relative offsprings off that. So things are very fast in my family life. I have 40 nieces and nephews, great nieces and nephews, just regular nieces and nephews, 1,000 aunts and uncles. So a lot of times I do want to go back to a lot of family parties and just relish in that because times do get crazy. There's a lot of people to take care of, a lot of people to think about. So I'd like to slow down my past a little bit or maybe my future and just sit with it, go back in retrospect to my marriage and realize the first day we were married and all the great things about it. There's one thing I think I always time travel in my mind about my children, seeing them grow up. Now they're 27, 25, and I think, wow, where did it go? So I'm constantly traveling back with my memory for my future. Yeah, I want to time travel there too. I want to think about things that I could plan, maybe to celebrate what I had in the past and maybe do it all over again, a couple of big family parties. Even though they'll cost a bunch of money, maybe just do it and plan for it and try and time travel that way so I have some goals. But if I was to change anything, I don't know if it would be a good thing or a bad thing, but I would say my career, I've had a lot of them. I have a lot of different degrees. I've raised my kids around different jobs just to be home and to raise my family and to be a mom. And I always say, oh my gosh, my jobs were never consistent. My career was never consistent. What could I have done better? But now I realize, I think they all led me here. And, I kind of get a little nervous about that. What is my next future going to be in my career? But I can honestly say that I did write the children's book. And I mentioned that when I rejoined Toastmasters, and it's coming out on Sunday. So it made my careers as an audiologist, as a teacher, as so many different things. And I would have never thought I would be an author. So would I change that? I don't think so. I really don't. So in retrospect, I'm pretty thankful when I look back, even at all my mistakes or all my trials and tribulations, to finally get to this moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. So retrospective is an interesting place to spend time mulling things over. Personally, I chose to live my life without regrets. So I'm moving forward in every way and getting past anything that maybe wasn't quite what I thought it should be. And some things you can't change, so you have to live with it. Madam Timer, can you give us a timer's report, please? And let us know how everyone did this morning with their time frames.
I can, thank you, Madam Table Topics Master. Everyone qualified except for Nancy Rose. She did go over. Jill's time was 1 minute 50 seconds. Jason, 1 minute 52 seconds. Mike, 1 minute 51 seconds. Dave Licata, 2 minutes 8 seconds. You can keep in time. And Nancy was 2 minutes and 48 seconds. Thank you.
And now we'll hear from our word master. How did the word retrospect do?
Word did pretty good. Jill used it, Jason used it, Mike used it, Nancy used it. Now help me out here. I didn't hear Dave Licata use it. Did anybody? Right in front? Thank you. I wasn't paying attention. In that case, everybody used it then.
Thank you. All right. You can now cast your ballots for David Licata, Jill, Jason, or Mike. Thank you. And back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jackie. Next up, what are we going to talk about? Actual time travelers. All of those people who have claimed to time travel before. There are a few. It goes back to 1911, where Anne Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, they actually wrote a book because they believed that they had time traveled while on the grounds of the Palace of Versailles. They thought they had seen the ghost of Marie Antoinette, and they chronicled it, and I think they made a bit of money, but they were also ridiculed for it when people found out who the actual authors were. There have been, of course, people posting on the internet. There was a famous poster on a bulletin board on the internet back in 2000 and 2001 named John Titer, who claimed that he was a time traveler from 2036, but many of the predictions that he made didn't come true. So I think a lot of his appeal has lost his appeal over time, I should say. And of course, there are all kinds of conspiracy theories about the government creating time machines or time travel devices of some sort. You hear about the Philadelphia experiment and the Montauk Project, and people involved in military service claiming to have time traveled as part of some government experiment. I believe I even heard something about our former President Trump's father creating a time machine at one point. So that was another conspiracy theory. There are all kinds of people claiming to have time traveled. And if you search the internet, you'll find pictures, old pictures of time travelers. One of my very favorites is the hipster. There's a hipster picture on the internet, the time traveling hipster, and I'll share that with you all over email because it's probably my favorite, where you see this hipster in the midst of a very old scene, and he does look pretty out of place there. So people believe he was a time traveler from the future. Next up, folks, we have our speaking portion of the meeting. And for our speaking portion of the meeting today, our first speaker today is going to be David Jones. His evaluator is Jill Roaring. So Jill, can you share with us a little bit about David's speech and introduce him today?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Jen. David is speaking from the Effective Coaching Level 2, Understanding Your Communication Style. The purpose of this project is for the member to learn about different communication styles and identify his or her primary style. And also for the speech for the member to share the impact of his or her style on others. David Jones is going to tell us about his communication style. His time is 5 to 7 minutes. And his title is Show and Tell. David Jones, Show and Tell.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and Evaluator, and good morning, fellow Toastmasters and guests. As mentioned, my speech project is on my communication style, and that was determined by going on to Toastmasters International and doing an assessment. And the assessment showed that I am an initiator, meaning I talk way too much and I don't listen enough. But whatever your communication style is, I believe it's all changed since the pandemic. We had to change the way we speak. In the old days, we would be on stage and we would be communicating like this and talking in person and being able to walk around a room and going up and shaking people's hands. But since the pandemic, we went to a thing called Zoom. And in retrospect, we might have thought about changing the way we communicate with the different technologies, but the pandemic made us get there. And it's changed our communication style because, again, we're not doing this anymore, walking around. We're now confined to this little box. We're basically mimes trying to show our hand gestures. We can't move outside of this box. We just have to be right here. And we can't do this anymore because we'll knock over the camera and we'll be out of view for everybody. But we're able to communicate with each other. I'm in North Carolina, you all are in New York. So it's a wonderful way to participate, even though you all are back in person. And now that we're starting to do hybrid, and I have 2 hybrid clubs here in Charlotte, we still have a different way of communicating. I mean, you're able to stand on stage and walk around the room and look at everybody, but you also have to look at the camera and include those of us on Zoom. In person, you have to have somebody in the room operating the equipment and setting it up. It's just one more way that we've all learned to communicate. And that's what's great about Toastmasters is we learn to adapt. We practice over and over. And that's what I'm doing today is practicing some new equipment. I think you all can see a little square here that evidently is probably annoying, but we'll get past that. The other challenge that I've had with communicating is when we do our show and tell. We like to do slideshows or show pictures. And usually we try to do the share screen and we have to wait or ask for it and we fumble around. And it's a little awkward for the speaker and for those watching. And the other way that I've done it is I would do my background. I would change it and have a picture and I would try to point to what I'm talking about. And nobody can ever see that. It's an awkward way. Or we'll say, hey, here's a picture of my granddaughter. And again, it's a very awkward way to do it. But there is technology out there that has helped us improve upon our speaking. No longer do we have to stand like this in front of the screen. We can now stand up, but we do have to project because we have a little microphone. And now, I just lost my train of thought. Zoom is going to be a part of our lives. Every 2 weeks, I meet with my boss and we talk on Zoom for about an hour. She's in Michigan, so I've embraced Zoom. I embrace Zoom at my hybrid clubs. I deal with clients on Zoom and I also make promotional videos and do some demos for Toastmasters with different clubs. Zoom is here to stay, I believe, especially in New York where you have a lot of snows or people are sick and they can still join on Zoom. So no longer are there a lot of great excuses not to come to each and every single meeting. Now with that, I decided since Zoom is part of our lives, to embrace it. And with that, I made a studio in my house. I call this Studio D, D for David. And I have a 3-camera setup. So I have camera 1, camera 2, and then I'll also have the studio room view. Now, yes, I do wear pants during Zoom, mostly because of this. But the great thing about this is the ability to show and tell. And show and tell is a different communication style where I can actually show you on screen instead of trying to be clumsy and try to show different ways of expressing myself to you. And part of my show and tell and my new communication style, which is this room in my house, is to be able to show you my passion. And most of you know my passion is camping and hiking. And with that, I'd like to show you a little slideshow, which is more convenient now to show to the group. Now, this picture is the first time I went on the Appalachian Trail, not too far from the Biltmore where Dave was. And the background is the real background. I'm sure Dave saw these mountains because they're not too far from where he was at. And back then I was a little chunky, but I knew that I was going to fall in love with hiking and camping. Now, the first time I went camping by myself, I hiked out 10 miles, camped in the woods, and had a really great time. But this is the main location I go. This is a community area where there might be 20 or 30 tents. There's also been times where I've been the only one there, which is really scary. And I do like to solo hike, but there are times when I go with my tribe. And you see me on the side there sitting down. I'm probably looking at my toes. And we're around the fire. And I've mentioned in other speeches that I'm an expert in making campfires. The other group was from Iowa, and they just happened to be camping and they wanted to use our fireplace or our campfire. And we sat around and we're storytelling, and you can see how they're giving some great stories. This is a site at night, and this is our views. You know, we see the sunset and the sunrise there in the morning. And again, you can still see my campfire going. Now, this is my tent. It's an ultralight tent. It is about 1.5 pounds. My black bag is about 2 pounds. All of my equipment is lightweight because, you know, I'm hiking out 7-10 miles. And these are our views. And under that mist and clouds are cities, because where I'm at is 1 mile high. We're 1 mile above sea level. This is another location that I like to go camping by myself. It is 6,000 feet above sea level. And here's where we're at. This is where I start. I hike in, and you can see we're at 1 mile high. In the background, you probably can't see it, but it shows the North Carolina state line. And I'm on the North Carolina-Virginia border. And there's me and the tribe just standing above the clouds. It's an awesome experience. But my communication style and your communication style has changed to adapt to our new normal, our way of communicating with each other on Zoom. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, David. I took over some timing duties there for a moment, and I can do the same for Les if someone in the room can just let me know when we get to those times. So Les is our next speaker today, and his evaluator is Mark Campos. Mark, can you share with us and introduce Les?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning. Before I introduce Les, I'd like to touch on the meeting topic, if I may. I really don't see the big deal about time travel. Jen just touched on it. All we have to do is go fast. Star Trek teaches us all we need to do is just travel at super warp speed, loop around the sun, and we can emerge at whatever time we want. So I don't see the big deal. It's only 93 million miles. It's not that far away. We should be able to do this. And being the small-minded individual that I am, when I think of time travel, I think of going back in time to the really important moments, like a sporting event that I'd like to see, maybe at a venue that doesn't exist anymore, or maybe seeing my favorite band during a tour I didn't get to see. But anyway, enough of that. Allow me to introduce Les. And Les is working out of the Motivational Strategies Pathway, Level 1. His speech is titled Vocal Variety and Body Language in 2022, and he will explain why vocal variety and body language are important in today's online world. Timer, the time is 4 to 6 minutes, which I presume means this is an icebreaker in this pathway. Madam Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Les.
You guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yes, in 2022, everybody is online, they're talking, and we're communicating more and more. And I have been basically in sales since about 1990, and body language, vocal variety, listening, all of that plays a very important part. But as we have moved forward, we've gone into more of online selling, working, and being, as we said, caught in a little box. Retrospectively, I like to do stuff out in public when I'm in front of groups. And this is one thing I learned from Toastmasters is my arms are very large and I have to watch my body movement because it can overwhelm people. And I have learned that in Toastmasters and I've kept that a very important part. But the important part of your body movement is to make sure is that when you're on screen, you're not like this. And I've sat through a bunch of Zoom presentations, and I bet we all have, where you have the person like this, and you're getting vertigo, okay? And when you're dealing with people, you can't be doing this on the screen. You have to practice, very important. One important thing about 2020 online is what I will do is I will be on one screen, I'll have my wife on the other screen, and I'll practice a few times. So I do some gestures, so I stay within the visual screen and I'm not covering my face and I'm not making the people feel seasick. And that is very important to make sure that your gestures are done correctly. It's not like when you're in a group or you're at the meeting where you can kind of use your gestures in the group. That is number one. Number two, sometimes you are going to be using your vocal variety and you will not have video. So it comes back to when I used to basically work over the phone is you use your ear, okay? And you got your, basically your pitch, your pace, your power, and your pause. And mirroring. And very important is when you talk to people, you do the initial 30 seconds, 40 seconds, where you kind of mirror them and match their pitch and their tone and listen to them, okay? And you keep continuing on and continuing on. One of the things you don't want to do, okay, is continue to talk. And one other great thing about today's technology is rule one is when you ask a question, you pause. Now, when you're in a person face to face or over the phone or in a group, you kind of, it's that dead silence, that empty vacuum of silence. Technology gives us one special thing that we can actually work around is 30 seconds or 40 seconds. I will ask somebody, as Mr. or Mrs. Smith, did you hear the question? Yes or no? And they will say yes. That breaks the state. So this is one of the advantages of online working is you have the ability to break a person's state so they can answer the question and it works to your advantage. Mirroring is a lot tougher online because you don't have that one-on-one. So it's basically more back to listening, your tone, and your pitch. That is more of the mirroring than sitting in the room with mirroring. And once you can break the state and the pause, today the pause is more powerful if it's learned how to handle. I have been on meetings where a person will ask a question and 2 seconds later that person's blurting it out. I've been on meetings where someone's asked a question, there's been dead silence for 3 minutes. You wonder if anybody's in the meeting or out of the meeting. But that's why it's very important to understand the pitch, the tone on that. And working on the overview of your body language is make sure you don't do a lot of this, practice that, the power of the pause, mirroring, and the tone and pitch. Thank you.
Thank you, Les. All right, so if everyone would just like to take a minute who's online and perhaps send our speakers a little message. And I do also want to remind our evaluators that it is part of your duty to send an actual physical evaluation to our speakers as well. So whether that's through an email or if you want to take a picture of your evaluation form and text it, it is part of the requirements for our evaluator. So I'm going to remind them of that. And in the meantime, we will get a timers report. Beth, can you share with us how our speakers did in terms of time and where they fell on the timing continuum?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Our timers both qualified. David Jones with a time of 7:15 and Les Robinson with a time of 4:20. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Beth. So we can go ahead and vote for best speaker today. And I know Eric has a quote that he would like to share with us. Eric Schneider, are you available to share that quote? Perhaps he isn't.
I'm here.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests. Today's quote, and everybody can guess it. This is going to be a little mini quiz. I'm not taking away from Margot's quiz, but great Scott! Who said that quote? Come on, I know you all, Jen, don't say it. I want everybody else to think of it.
Perry White.
Who?
Perry White.
No.
Christopher Lloyd.
Thank you, Kate. Christopher Lloyd, thank you. Thank you. And there's another movie,
From
Jen,
what? For people who
Oh.
don't know.
Back to the Future. There's one other time travel movie that maybe Jen might not even heard of. It's called The Final Countdown. Kirk Douglas, Martin Sheen. Even my coworker knows it too. So look it up. The Final Countdown. So, thank you, Jen.
All right, thank you for sharing that with us, Eric. And if we're on trivia time, I do want to point out to both Dave and Phil that the Time Machine was actually written by H.G. Wells, so they were both wrong. Just wanted to get that out there as a correction. Don't want anyone to have misunderstanding on that point. So our evaluator for speaker number 1 today is already at the lectern. Jill, do you want to share your evaluation with us?
As a matter of fact, yes, I will. Fellow Toastmasters and especially David, your speech, show and tell, was very interesting today. Not only did you show us pictures of your vacations and your camping style, but you also showed us a new Zoom style, your whole new studio. I have to say that when you appeared on camera, I had the double take. I think this was the first time I've seen you without a hat. At least since we've been meeting here and your picture was on a big screen. I'm not sure that I actually recognized you instantly. That little box was very distracting at first. But then you showed what the purpose of it was. And it really did enhance your speech at that point. Fortunately, you did tell us what it was for. You showed us traditional vacation photos, which, let's face it, I think we've all been there. They can get pretty boring, but not yours. Primitive camping is interesting. But primarily your speech was about the impact on modern life of the Zoom process and its speaking style. I don't know if Toastmasters actually addresses that in their teachings about Zoom, about understanding your communication style. I don't think it probably is in there. You might work on your time management. I was watching your show and tell and watching the clock and thinking, uh-oh. So your speech kind of ended a little abruptly there. Your speech, the impact on modern life in the Zoom, not just communication style, but life in general. So thank you very much for bringing this speech to us today, David. It was very interesting. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Jill. Our second evaluator today, evaluating Les, will be Mark Campos. Mark, are you ready to share your evaluation with us?
I am, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning once again, and especially to Les. Today we got to see a very seasoned Toastmaster in action, the DTM, giving a very interesting speech on a timely topic, and he had a lot of good information that he shared with us. When we talk about Les's strengths, clearly he's very comfortable as a speaker. He's very confident as a speaker. No notes at all were used during the speech, and he was really effective with his gestures. Now, Les, building upon those strengths, I think your speech could have been even more effective in a few ways. Number one, eye contact. You started out very strong. You were looking directly at us, at the camera, and looking at us. However, over time, as the speech unfolded, your eyes began to wander quite a lot, and you weren't engaging us to the same degree. So try to stay focused on that camera as much as possible. There is no room around you to work. We're all right there. Secondly, on the topic of comfort, you were sitting back, and it's great that you were comfortable giving your speech. I think from an engagement standpoint, it's just a little bit more powerful to be more upright, even leaning in a little bit to the camera. I think it's just more engaging to the audience. The only other thing I might offer in terms of feedback was that your ending was a little bit on the abrupt side. We just kind of came to an ending very quickly, so I would work on that a little bit. But overall, I thought it was a very interesting and again, timely speech. Not all of us love Zoom, and I get it, but there's no doubt that it causes us to have to use different skill sets that we normally wouldn't use. And in the end, those are just additional tools in the toolbox that make us better as speakers. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mark. And now we are ready to call up our general evaluator for the meeting. I know we do have some extra time today, so if any of our role holders, as he calls them, would like to share with us any of their places they would like to go, past, present, or future. And before we call our general evaluator, we'll actually get a timers report. So Beth, can you share with us how our evaluators did in terms of timing today?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. In terms of timing, Jill Roaring's time was 2 minutes 39 seconds and Mark's was 2 minutes 9 seconds. So they both qualify. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster.
All right, thank you, Beth. So go ahead and cast your votes for the best evaluator today. And now I would like to call up our general evaluator, Thomas Heldwine, for his reports. Thomas, if you are in the room, in the meantime, I will just go ahead and tell you, for me, if I am going to time travel, where would I like to go? Potentially in the future, maybe not too far. I want the world to still be here. But if I were to go to the past, I want to see something cool like dinosaurs or the pyramids being built and bring those secrets back to the future. All right, thank you, Thomas.
Thank you so much for our Toastmaster today. Thank you, Jen. Wait, I got a text from you from 8:35, 30 minutes in the future, that you're going to give a toast now? Is that true?
A toast to the present.
Excellent. There's my opening joke. All right. So today's meeting started off on time. I was in the middle of coffee and I heard the Toastmaster on Zoom say, at 7 o'clock, we need to start. So I ran over here and got started. That was good. She kept moving when we didn't have Larry come in for his quote master, and eventually got Eric online. I'm assuming that was through Zoom messaging. And in thinking about that, I want to take a moment. Larry, I believe, is positive for COVID, and no one has had contact with him for at least 5 days, maybe since last meeting. I hope he's doing well. If we could just have a moment to send positive thoughts out to the universe. Hope Larry's doing all right. The tech and gesture, we had a volunteer, Katie Orr. She came in without any, well, there was a slight delay, but that's always a good practice when you're a Toastmaster. Just stay silent. Silence is golden. Someone will fill the silence with, I volunteer. Everyone's level of discomfort increases every moment that passes. So that time travel, or that elapsing of time, it can be well used, as Jen did today. Jill came up for table topics, and when she was thinking of what to say, she did pause. And although some people say long pauses are bad, she came forward with well thought out ideas and things for us to think about. So a pause, even though it might be long, is better than filling the silence with ums, ahs. It's something that I think we can all learn from Jill. I'm going to evaluate the evaluators. Dave evaluated Jill's speech. It was clear, or I'm sorry, Jill evaluated Dave's speech. See, I'm referring to my notes and they're backwards. She clearly was taking notes during the speech. I was trying to watch what she was doing during the speech, and she was diligently taking notes. She had several areas for improvement. She had areas that she liked and enjoyed. She had gestures while she was up here. I'm one person who normally is way over the top with gestures or have none. So the fact that she was able to put those in there was great. The use of I saw, I thought. If you look at Toastmasters, how to be an evaluator, it talks about your perspective, what you saw, what you felt from your observations. So overall, good evaluation of Dave. Mark evaluated less. He did touch on the one thing that I think, because of his relaxed style, some people might not have picked up on, is the amount of information he had in his speech. Mark did talk about that, and I like that. Gesture-wise, Mark, I like the fact that you keep your arms ready to go in what I'm going to call a field goal position, and then you go to a gesture, and you go right kind of back to the field goal, and they're just barely on camera. You can usually just see your thumbs. I think that's an idea that I'm going to actually take forward, is to kind of have your hands ready to go. And it kind of might be one of the reasons why you had so many really good gestures in your speech. You also used the words I thought, which I enjoyed hearing from you. Both of you, the speaker and the evaluator, spoke without notes. You kept eye contact with the camera. Maybe you put your notes up off to the side. That's a good way to make it look like you don't have notes. Or maybe you did it all from memory. If you did it from memory, that's something that I wish I could do, but I normally am not able to. Overall, a good job. One of the general comments on the meeting would be that when we have a timer here, but we have speakers and evaluators off, we need to probably start thinking about someone online showing the green, yellow, and red lights. Yeah, I know we did eventually, yes. What I would say is maybe we try and have the person able to do that. Maybe timers, I'm not sure what the solution is. Maybe timers always online, always on Zoom,
It's
because
going to be the case in the next schedule.
next schedule. Oh, already talked about it. Okay, excellent. There we go. So, I felt like time travel. The solution was created before the question. All right, so. See that long pause that you'll have? I had to understand my own note. Evaluation needing mentioning. Jen mentioned that we need to be able to provide as an evaluator. The evaluators need to provide the feedback back to the speaker. And I like it when the speaker is in person because they get that little pile of notes. Even if it's 2 sentences like good job, that does mean something. If that's all you're gonna write down as good job, that's still something. I still have a whole bunch of piles of notes attached to each of my speeches, and I like those ones that just say good job. Moving on to calling on people for reports. We go backwards. But before I do, John had asked a question. If we could time travel, what would we do? I don't think I would affect my own life. This is a story I might have told before, but when we were sitting around at Thanksgiving, and I was maybe 12, everyone was talking about what they would do. And I had said that I wanted to be Simon of Cyrene. And only my grandmother knew who that was. She burst into tears. That's the man they called out from the crowd to carry Jesus Christ's cross. If I could travel anywhere and do one thing, that would be it. Unfortunately, I found out that he was a 7-foot black African, and I don't think I could get away with changing time. But with time travel, I could very easily see someone from the future going back and doing that for me, for all of us. All right, going a bit through roles. Katie Orr was our tech and gesture master today. Katie Orr, could you please give your evaluation?
Sure, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Great, thanks all. It was a lovely meeting. I loved today's topic as far as time travel. I love reading books about time travel and watching movies about time travel so much that I don't think I have any favorite. Thanks for the H.G. Wells correction, Jen. It saved me from doing that. But it's cool that so many of us have experiences with this, sci-fi or whatever you want to call it. I think that fantasizing about it is interesting. It's probably not practical on any real level, but fantasizing about it keeps us dreaming. And daydreaming was a recent word of the day, so now I'll be daydreaming all day today about it. I think everyone used your microphones very well, and we had a lot of natural gestures today. I'm going to focus, I think, on our speakers and our timing. And evaluators, I'll just interject, you both were very clear. Jill in person and Mark on Zoom. For timing, so that was brought up by Thomas also. So that was some great tag teaming. It really takes a team, because I noticed, so Beth is the timer. Mike Licata jumped in to use the folders. I was keeping time, but then it wasn't pinned always, and I didn't do the best job for poor Nancy. So that might have been my fault that she went over time. So Jen was helping, and then Len, because he has to pin it so that if anyone's on Zoom, it can be seen. So Len is always wearing lots of hats. Kudos to you, because there's so much behind the scene, setting it up, taking it down, putting on the polls, making sure things are muted or highlighted or pinned. It's quite involved, and I'm loving how we're evolving. The best practices we have are great, but we're learning more. This brings me to our speakers. David, I'm glad you, like Jill said, mentioned your tech and that you were practicing and coaching, because of course that box was distracting and it was made me wonder, what does no card in camera mean? But I'm curious to see what David is going to show us today, because he's not on right now. So I'm not sure if he's there and he can hear me, but in any case, I think it motivates us all to be constantly improving. We're all working together. We're constantly learning from techniques. I think that eventually, David, you will soon be able to give a master class in that kind of studio presentation. And I appreciate you demonstrating to us again, like we often do. We use Toastmasters as our practice ground and a safe, supportive environment, a space where we can practice. Will this work for my next work presentation? Will this work for my next interview? Will this work when I'm presenting at my community meeting or whatever it is, technology or not? In any case, anything, even from when we added microphones in, is technology, let's face it. And that was years ago, and we still struggle with it in some ways. I agree with Mark about leaning forward, but I think you appeared, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you were positioned a bit closer than usual. Maybe I'm totally making that up, but I don't know if you brought the camera closer to you and positioned yourself a bit more forward. And thank you for explaining what useful and appropriate gestures are. That's super helpful. I appeal to you the eye contact comment Mark made also. I think Phil Russell has been the champion of that in our club since we started being on Zoom. He always is saying, look at that tiny little light. You can't look at each other. You can't look up into the distance. When you're in person, look at that camera. When you're on Zoom, look at that camera and you're making eye contact. When I'm at work presentations, I hear Phil's voice on my shoulder saying, look at the camera. And it's a great voice to have. I love that we coach each other. Great job, everybody. Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Katie. Don't get mentioned often in the meeting, but thank you, Beth, for taking the time to be a timer. I know that it's very demanding because you have 3 reports to give. You miss one start of a speech and it throws everything off. And you have to sit there and go, did I not time them for 15 seconds, 30 seconds? How much do I need to add? And hopefully with technology, you would think that we'd have a better system, but unfortunately the timer's job is very demanding. For grammarian, a job which I would rather eat pebbles than do myself, we're going to hear from someone who I believe is going to give us some valuable information on how we did today. Our grammarian for today, Phil Russell. Phil.
Mr. General Evaluator, I agree with you 100% on that. Now, as grammarian, which is not my favorite, was not my favorite subject in school either, but I did not do a whitewash. However, we have a lot of great grammar in this organization. Now, I have 3 things I'm going to point out in retrospect here, 2 of which have nothing to do with grammar. The third one does, that I believe we can all learn from. First, Jackie, in retrospect, was yesterday your birthday? Now, my second one, I don't believe I was clear enough on my Jules Verne reference. He's my favorite fiction author. I love 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was my favorite. I didn't care whether he started the idea or not. I was only thinking of that. I love that movie when I saw it when I was younger. So I have to be a little bit clearer myself at what I'm saying. So neither of you are right. I was talking about fiction. Now, My third one about grammar. Jason, I want to point out some things. You are working extremely hard. And table topics is an exercise in extemporaneous speaking. I learned this from Dick Fuller, who also was a trainer for General Motors in the Dale Carnegie. And his suggestion was this: we all have this problem, I especially. What we have to do when we speak, because you are getting lost in different areas, is we have to gather our thoughts quickly and then speak in thought phrases. You can have all the pauses you want, but the idea behind it is when you're asked that question, put your thoughts in your mind and then gather them, put them in order, and speak them. That will help you out in your communication skills, because it's very difficult when you're trying to put the topic together, you're trying to do perfect enunciation of the words, the whole deal. And so that's why I'm saying we all have this thing. And Jason, I want to commend you on working hard on this, because you worked hard, number one, to get in time. And now this little idea might help you into the future. And that's it, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Phil. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Phil. Retrospectively, this is the point where the Dunning-Kruger effect comes in. Those people who are inexperienced at speaking think they spoke with no ahs or ums or so's. Those of us that know even 20% about speaking will overestimate the amount of times that we did a bad job with this. So with that, our ah master, Carol Ann.
For the most part, the speeches today flowed quite smoothly. Jason did have some ahs and ums. Jen had a quick restart. Mike had a so. Dave Jones actually mentioned he lost his train of thought, but recovered quite quickly. Jill had a, like I said, and Jackie had a so. So I caught very few ahs today. I would like to say, if I had a chance to go back, I probably would go back to my wedding day and the birth of our first daughter, if I could skip the labor part. And I wish I'd known at the time how quickly your children grow up, and the time that all of a sudden I didn't spend enough time with them. And we have 4 grandchildren. 2 of them are already in their early 20s. Make sure you enjoy all the time that you have with people you care about.
We have 2 jobs left to talk about. The first is our quiz master. She's on today. She's going to test our knowledge. Margot Bittner. Margot.
Good morning, everyone. I have 3 questions for you. During table topics, Mike was very happy to share that there are 2 things that gave him such joy he'd like to experience them again. What were they?
Wedding day, wedding child.
Correct. During the speeches, Les gave me a fabulous visual when he said, hand motions that are confusing give you what illness?
Vertigo.
Vertigo. And interestingly enough, both of our evaluators gave the same exact suggestion, there's an "ah" for you, to both of our speakers. What was it?
Eye contact.
They both suggested they not have abrupt endings, that they have a way to conclude their speech and move on when they see the light. Both of them suggested they beef up the ending. And those are my 3 questions for today, Mr. General Evaluator.
Last part of every meeting is where we see how the word of the day did today, and Steve is coming to go give us that.
Thank you. The word did very well today, actually. Jen used it, Beth used it, Kate used it. Margot gave us respective, Thomas gave us respectively. Phil and Tom used it twice. The winner today would be Jackie, because she used the word multiple times during her presentation of table topics. I think the word did very well. Now, I want to leave you with this one thought. It has been said, we are the sum total of every decision we have ever made. So, therefore, if we were to go back in time and change something, anything, we would not be who we are today. Is that good or bad? Mr. General Evaluator.
With that, I'm going to complete my role as general evaluator. Look at Jen online to see if she has anything she'd like to add. Yes or no? Thumbs up.
I am all set, and I think we're ready to present the awards unless you have something else. All right, then let's go ahead and present our awards today. I'll ask you to stay to present in person, and I can do the honors online. So we'll start out with our best table topics winner, and that goes to Mike Hayes. Mike, congratulations. You can come on up to receive your ribbon. All right, and next up we have our best evaluator. Our best evaluator today goes to Mark Campos. Congratulations, Mark. And there you are receiving your ribbon. We have to do some camera. There we go. Yeah, now you got to get one in person, right? And finally, our best speaker today goes to David Jones. Congratulations, David. And again, our winner recipient here. And in the room, I'm going to ask Thomas to go ahead and draw our 50-50 for David.
I have some in there, so.
Uh-oh. Well, I don't know if there's someone else who wants to draw. Well, too late. Your hand's in there. You got it. Just go.
So the last 3 numbers are 384. Oh, man. Okay, our newest number is 1.
All right. So it looks like Mike is the big winner today.
Those are close to that. Definitely worth getting up for. Breakfast is on Dave this morning.
Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining and talking about time travel with me this morning. I hope you enjoyed the meeting. I'll turn it over to Thomas to close the meeting today and call for any announcements.
Okay, first I'm going to open it up to any general announcements, if anyone has any.
I do. This is Kate on Zoom. Thanks, everybody. We will be doing an officer installation that will be coming soon and new member inductions. I also wanted to echo Phil's comment that it is Jackie's birthday week. It was her birthday yesterday, and she also recently reached a level 5 on her path. So please join me in giving her that applause and her level 5. So she completed a path. Very well done. And then I looked ahead to next week's schedule. Joe Budnick is our Toastmaster next week. I know his attendance has been 50-50. I reached out to him and left a message this morning. So we'll see if we hear back. We do for sure need an evaluator at least. So hop on there. Our speakers next week are Mark and and Nancy Ferry, and Phil Russell, your alternate. So we're missing a speaker spot if you want to take that. And I'll be in touch with everybody about Toastmastering. So we do not have a theme yet for next week.
Kate, just to let you know, I spoke to Joe Sunday when he was at work. He is planning on being there because the school year will be over. He will not have to be rushing off
He's here
to
in
the
the room.
classroom.
Joe is here in the room. Do you have a-
Oh, he is.
Joe! Well, maybe Thomas already figured this out. Mr. President, back to you.
Ooh, the theme is summer fun.
Sorry, Joe. Thank you, Margot and Thomas, and thank you, Joe.
Excellent. I love summer fun. Don't we all? I know. No, it doesn't, but that's why you enjoy it while it's here.
I'll remind everybody if we're still chit-chatting. I know it's 8:30, so you'll close it. But thanks, Joe, for being here. I hope you can come all summer. And I know Christine can be back for the summertime, so we'll have a good summer together. But I'll email out to everybody, save the date for 716 Day, which is July 16th or 7/16. And we'll be doing an outing to the Botanical Gardens and Shakespeare and Delaware Park for our social hours. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Katie. With that, I'm going to conclude the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for being here online or in person. Don't forget to put your second chance straws in. We don't need these, do we? No, I'm just gonna put it on the back. Does anyone know whose notebook this is? Maybe they put their name in the front. Oh, it's Chris. At your back.
Oh, from last week.
Probably.
Because she was, kind of in charge of.
Right.
So,
She left that, she left this extra certificate. Okay. We've got a big pile of, what I might call junk up here. Uh-oh.
And you're gonna need a. Oh, okay. I just used my.